Africa has so much to tell us and is a vast, broad, old, glorious story, as it would have to tell any people, but we don't know what it is. And so to replace that and to excuse, to explain, to justify what the West did to Africa in the Berlin Conference when they divided it up and parceled it, drew lines through language and ethnic groups, and destroyed it, and then colonized it, and then used it even after colonialism, burned it up in the Cold War, and visited upon it AIDS and that sort of thing. After all of that, shame causing us to want, as whites in the West, to escape the deed, to paper that over with a myth of Tarzan and jungle and bestiality and all of that. It is a crime of enormous proportion what the Western powers have done.
Africa is now the emerging area of the world. It contains 25% of all the members of the General Assembly. We didn't even have a Bureau of African Affairs until 1957. In the Africa south of the Sahara, which is the major new section, we have less students from all of Africa in that area studying under government auspices today than from the country of Thailand.
We must remember that the people of Africa and Asia and Latin America don't want to be pawns simply in a struggle between two great powers, the Soviet Union and the United States. We have to let them know that we want to help them, not because we're simply trying to save our own skins, not because we're simply trying to fight communism, but because we care for them.
He knew that there was a contract out on Lumumba. There's no question about that.
So you're saying even during the debates, Nixon knew?
Oh, of course, of course.
Lumumba's bonds are tightened. They were taking no chances. And his wife and child watch his humiliation. The whole affair, of course, serves to underline once again the conditions prevailing in the Congo. It's not enough to arrest a man. He must apparently be beaten up as well.
I mean, Nixon knows during the debates that we tried to kill Castro, too. I mean, Nixon knows a lot about what's going on. He has to swallow his pride and bite his tongue here, not to give away the family jewels here.
So he's lying to the American public.
Of course.
In the years to come, it will be written that one or the other of us was elected, and that he was or was not a great president.
In the center of the continent of Africa is the independent country of the Congo. Here you can travel 1,250 miles north to south and 1,200 miles east to west and meet people of many ethnic backgrounds speaking many languages, all part of a country with 4 years of independence behind it. 4 turbulent years.
What does it say about us that we would invite a man to our shores for dinner and then plan his assassination? What does it say about us that 50 years after his death, we still don't know why Lumumba was killed? Is it because we don't ask, or we don't care?
Coup d'etats in Africa. How many were we responsible for?
Oh, gee. I would have to say that every coup d'etat that takes place in post-colonial Africa from about 1956-57, right up to and including the first years of the 21st century. Involvement can be everything from, in the old days, if you supplied 100 guys with small automatic weapons and a couple of trucks filled with gas, you had yourself an invasion force that could overthrow a sitting government in some small African state.
On both sides, you find American involvement, facilitating a government or the war against the government, and providing resources, money, guns, and the implements of war that these people need to tear up their societies.
There were no bombings in Stanleyville. There were massacres.
Johnson, in that era, is coming from a time when, this is post-colonial Africa, just recently post-colonial Africa, when some whites have been massacred by rebels in the Congo. The early days there were very tumultuous, and you had white hostages being taken all the time. And there is here, after all, this ancient, deep-seated worry about white women especially, but anybody white, being violated by armed black people.
If you look at all of these crises along the West African coast, Sierra Leone, Angola, Congo, just run from one to the other, and you see all of this bloodshed, all of this killing. The guns come from the United States.
Idi Amin.
We helped.
Oh, absolutely. The African Bureau in the Department of State looked the other way at Idi Amin's excesses with his own people long before he became an international cause célèbre.
Is there blood on America's hands in Africa?
Of course.
How much blood?
Well, depending on how you define it being shed, certainly we have a hand in much of the communal and tribal and sheer political killing that goes on, the civil wars that happen one way or another, either through instigation or a coup d'etat or the arms trade or whatever. And you can go up and down the West Coast and to some extent in the East, certainly in Uganda. We're responsible for supporting or in some way directly or indirectly making possible genocidal policies by a bunch of dictators like Idi Amin, whom we tolerated for years and years and years. Not just tolerated, but aided and abetted.
Africans just can't run things. That's the very, very fundamental point in the international scene. See my point?
Oh, boy, you sure see it around this place.
Well, yeah, of course you do. You see them. You know, I have mixed feelings. I receive their ambassadors. They change all the time, and I've had I love them. They're so kind and so nice, and they're children.
He's on these tapes saying there are no good black leaders. They need to stick with what they're good at, like dancing and the arts and sports.
Well, you've got to remember, this is a small-town Southern California bigot at heart. This is a kid who
You think he was a bigot?
Oh, absolutely. This is a kid who grew up in a Quaker town that was known for its hypocrisy, and he grows up in a fundamentally prejudiced family. He never really outgrows that. He's a terrible bigot in terms of American domestic politics. He's anti-Semitic and he's certainly racist, and carries with him all the classic stereotypes of the American middle class. And when I would come into staff meetings, Al Haig and Kissinger would beat the table like this, tom-toms. And that was meant
because you were the
because my clients were these savages who were automatically regarded as fresh out of a Tarzan movie in the jungle.